Hey everybody, RJ Sampson here over with the Brand Exploration Podcast. It's our very first episode, so very excited. I've got my good friend Jake Weiner here. So you can see he's from ZOOZ Fitness out of Los Angeles, California. So he has a fitness studio that focuses on the special needs community and their health and wellness. So very excited to interview him because I've seen him start with this business when it was just him one-on-one outside at the park, super hot. And now he's got his own studio in, it said Encino?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Encino, full staff, full swing. So I'm very excited to meet him today and for you guys to meet him to learn more about his brand. So first thing I want to get into is why did you start this business?
Yeah. So first and foremost, RJ, thanks so much for having me on. Very excited. It's actually my first time talking about like our brand. Obviously I live and breathe it every day, but to share this with everyone. So thank you for having me on. So how and why I started the business. Really, ZOOZ started out of a great need to create an inclusive environment where individuals of all abilities could exercise and move their bodies. I worked in various settings and companies and organizations working with people with disabilities and really all abilities. And the one thing that I kept coming back to was the exercise component, that they were often unhealthy for various reasons. And in their communities, there were not a lot of opportunities to be healthy. So that was like a light bulb moment. Why is no one doing this? My passion, lies in helping people. And obviously the movement component, I think you have to love exercise in order to go into this field. So that was really,
Well, and for those of you that don't know, ZOOZ, if you want to tell them what ZOOZ means.
Definitely. ZOOZ is a word in Hebrew that means move. So at the core of what we do in our name, right? Talking about branding, like ZOOZ is move. So that is our sole purpose, is to get everyone to move their bodies.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that story because you found a need that wasn't being met, which gives you the opportunity, right? You found what's called a blue ocean, which is it refers to. Are you familiar with that term?
No, I don't, but it sounds great. I want to hear more.
A blue ocean is when you find a space that nobody else is in. So if you think about the ocean, right, there's fish and predators and sharks and all of that, but what you found is a space where there was nobody. When you have a red ocean, right, there's a lot of competition. There's sharks in the water, and right there's people just chomping at each other. But you were able to find this place in. Well, are there any other businesses in LA they're doing anything like this?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I'm laughing because the concept's new to me, but this idea of like fitness studios, gyms is not new. There are 5 gym studios right outside my window. You go onto the main street here, 5 gyms, but there's only a handful of us across the country who are working specifically with this population, with the individuals with disabilities. So there's one other person in the greater LA. LA is a large area.
Right.
I'm sure there are a few other gyms, but for my knowledge, there's not a whole lot of us doing this kind of work. And really, we're an inclusive studio. So we work with all types of individuals, but our main, focus and niche is working with those folks who maybe don't fit into that typical gym model, which is a much broader audience than most people think.
Okay, awesome. So let's rewind a little bit and go all the way back to when you first started the business and your brand concept and how did you develop that and what was that like for you when you were starting out?
Yeah, so it's and I don't come from a background of like branding or business or marketing. Really ZOOZ started out of just this need. It started out this organic need to want to help people. The branding piece really came from the athletes themselves. What was the need in the community? How do I advertise that? How do I display to the world what we do? And that, of course, as we dive a little deeper, is always our struggle and always is our challenge as a company. How do we position ourselves in the community that people know what we do and understand what we do? So it really, when thinking about, the inception of this business, it started really not like, oh, I want to find a good brand and I want to make a lot of money in this. It started, I want to help people. There's a huge need within this community. How do I do that? And it started really just me, boots on the ground doing the training myself. I want to get athletes, I want to get clients, I want to meet their families. What is the need in the community? And over the years, this is now 9 years in the making that ZOOZ has been around. It's transformed into so many different things. But really at the inception, it was, how do I help people? How do I get the word out about helping more people? And really families understand what we do. And for our athletes themselves, and just as a side note, because I'll refer to athletes a lot, we refer to all of our clients as athletes. I think that really has an amazing, level of depth with it, whether you're talking about the athletes themselves or talking about what we do, and really about branding. We want everyone to feel welcome. We don't want this, our gym to be, oh, this is a special needs gym. You walk into our gym, you're like, wow, this is a real gym. You have all the same equipment. You have no idea what we do. And that's intentional, really intentional we want this to be a safe place, a place that's very welcoming to everybody. So whether you have a disability or not, we want this place to be a space that you can come and feel like you can work out and explore what it means to be healthy.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece, obviously, that we've actually talked about before, where it's you're focused on that community, but you don't want them to feel alienated because of that. And so that's a fine line that you're having to walk of like how to include them. So I love the athlete piece, because it's putting them in a different mindset. It's not, hey, we're here because, we're in this community. It's, hey, no, we're here because we can still do the same things that everybody else is doing, right? It might be a different level. It might not be as, intense or whatever, but they're still doing it. And that's important.
Right. And I think that the really cool piece, why, we talk about why did you start this? How did you start it? Was out of this need, but exercise, has this really incredible way of breaking down natural barriers. So whether that be social barriers, physical barriers, mental barriers, that, exercise often automatically, when you hear the word exercise or fitness, like, boom, you get all these walls up. I can't do it. It's too hard. I don't like sweating. Not for me,
Yep.
That's like automatic whenever I bring this up to people. You're laughing because you've heard this too, right?
Yeah.
This is like everything we hear from parents time and time again. And unless you're crazy like me and love to exercise, you love to sweat, you love to work it, like most people are not like that. So when thinking about, starting ZOOZ in this brand that we've created, like exercise is just the perfect outlet and gateway to get our athletes to open up about a plethora of different things. I mean, we wear many hats as trainers, a friend, a mentor, a physical therapist, an OT, a doctor, like whatever it is that they need in that moment. Exercise is the vehicle to get them to that place. So it's really very cool. And again, over the years, it's really transformed into many things that we'll kind of get into. It's been a crazy journey.
That's a great transition though. So like from when you started to now, like how has the brand, evolved from being, that one-on-one studio to one-on-one in the park to the studio and having to actually develop a community and kind of address what they're doing?
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. I mean, it started again, me with my car, my small car, whatever I could fit in my trunk, moving around to different like parks or community centers. And that like really was me building the business. And I guess in a sense, also the brand. But really, I think what I've always come back to is when starting ZOOZ, I was the only trainer for the first couple of years. So when you thought of, ZOOZ Fitness, you thought of Jake, and I never wanted the company to be a company of one. I think we are as great as the team that we create, that we establish, and our community. I mean, ZOOZ is really a community. It's not just me anymore. We have other trainers in a gym space, but it's really like it transformed from, ZOOZ was Jake because I was the face of ZOOZ. I was the owner. I was the sole trainer. I was the marketing person. I did everything. You
were the Steve Jobs for ZOOZ.
Exactly. And I love that analogy. I've never been referred to as Steve Jobs, but I love that. We can keep that coming. But yeah, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, you wear so many hats. And really the charge to all owners is like creating a brand around what you do, not who you are. If that makes sense. I never wanted to be only me. So over the years, it was like, okay, how do we brand ourselves? We have to get other people to come on board. We need other faces to be a part of ZOOZ, not just Jake. So that's really what it's been over the past, 8+ years, finding amazing trainers who understand both fitness and exercise and also the special needs world, and understanding that, connection. Because most people, when they hear fitness for people with disabilities, like, whoa, I never thought about that. Why? Like, for me, it's so crazy. They are people, they deserve every right as we do, every opportunity. And that means every exercise, fitness, wellness opportunity that's out there should be geared for everybody. So, really, I think that transition was building an incredible team and then continuing to position ourselves and brand ourselves as a place where we are an inclusive gym. We welcome anyone and everyone. And this is what we do. You're going to come in, you're going to work like everybody else. You're going to sweat. You're going to throw medicine balls. You're going to slam ropes. You're going to lift weights. That's what we do. We're a gym.
Yeah, you're not
first and foremost.
You're not handling them with baby gloves.
Well, exactly. We're treating everyone who comes in our door gets treated the exact same way. If you have a disability or not, you're getting treated the same way, because that's what everyone deserves. But what we do is we tailor it to meet your needs, right? So like, also that is always a concern. A lot of parents, I don't know about fitness. I'm a little nervous. Like, again, how can we brand ourselves that everybody understands this is a place for everybody, because we meet you where your needs are at,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think the one thing you said in there that was extremely important, especially for business owners, is the realization that the business is not you, and it needs to be bigger than you and be focused on something that's bigger than a single person. It's a concept that needs to grow, not necessarily, your fame, although your fame can absolutely help. Right. The more you're known, the better it is for ZOOZ and vice versa. But realizing that is not what it's about. And I think there's definitely some business owners who connect their ego to the business. And that's a dangerous game, because it's not, it starts because of you, but it's not for you. Realizing
for sure.
The service part is so key. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Definitely. No, and real quick, RJ, about that, that's something we really, any new trainer that comes in, any volunteer, any intern, that's a comment, your ego stays outside the gym. There's zero ego in here. That's from the owner all the way down to, a volunteer is coming to help clean the gym. Like that is something that we don't stand for. And as a business, as a brand, as a community, that can't play into it, and listen, there are, I think, some businesses where if you're in the service industry, my brand is me, because that's all that's needed. If I'm a therapist or I'm a doctor, like I might be the sole person who's servicing clients or athletes, whatever, however you define your population, but for us, like, and especially a gym, gyms should be social, should be fun. That community piece is what keeps people coming back, not just me. As much as I think, oh, everyone loves me, great. Like, they may or may not, but they come back because of the community,
Yeah, and that's another great point. Is it seems like everyone there has a very strong connection with each other,
right?
Because one of the things that so important for businesses is like, how do you become a one-of-one business? And it's you create a connection that they can't get anywhere else, right? Why are people so fanatic about Apple? Right. If somebody were to create a brand just like Apple, same computer, same this, same that, like everything identical, but it was just a different name. And even if it were cheaper, I still don't think they would be willing to make that transition because of the loyalty and connection they've created emotionally to that business.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like you said, finding the trainers and finding the people that actually care and create those connections because of the lack of ego and they're willing to serve, huge.
Yeah. And I think why we're so successful, and I think really any business owner can take this, like, why did you start ZOOZ? It started out of a need in the community. It didn't start out of my desire to want to be a successful entrepreneur. That came after, for me personally. It was, here's this need. Nobody's doing this. Why shouldn't I be doing this? And then the entrepreneurship came into it, and I wanted to start a business. I have all these ideas, but it really, like, that is the core purpose of what we do, is our mission, is helping those people. And when you stray from that, I think is when businesses are not successful,
So then let me ask you that. Do you have a a core mission or a core purpose like defined that you can put out there, or is that something that's kind of in your brain?
No, that's absolutely something that we preach to anyone and everyone who will listen. And this whole idea of inclusion and empowering individuals of all abilities. I mean, really, obviously, we have like a whole phrase and whatnot, but that at its core is the inclusive nature.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So we are really like our tagline, right? Is kind of twofold. We are adaptive, inclusive, and active. Are three pillars of what we do, and that translates to everything that happens. And really, I think we'll probably touch on this. Throughout COVID, those three pillars were so valuable for me personally when the in-person training shut down. And I came in this gym and like this aha moment, like from the very moment we started, adaptive, inclusive, and active. COVID hit. That's like for every business owner. How do we adapt? How do we remain inclusive, whether you have a special needs population or not, inclusive to everybody? And then the active piece, like as a gym. So that really are three pillars in our tagline. But we empower individuals with all abilities to become more physically active and live a healthier and balanced lifestyle. Our mission and really like our vision for the future is to create a space that everyone feels welcome, regardless of ability level. So really, those all tie in so beautifully to this idea of we want to help anyone and everyone become their better selves, and through exercise is really our path.
Okay, so let's dive a little deeper here then.
For sure.
I mean, would you want a gym where, let's say, for lack of a better term, the normal community and your community are then working within the same gym and doing the same classes? And
we do that now, actually.
Okay.
Funny you should bring that up. So the concept of an inclusive space, neurotypical individuals, those who don't have a diagnosis, individuals who might have a diagnosis or have a disability, are working alongside each other. Not currently right now, actually, but throughout the week, absolutely. We have people training alongside. Typically, our group classes are geared more for individuals with diverse abilities. It's a little bit of a slower pace. We have a few more trainers in here. So, and we only say that if you're looking for a faster paced class, maybe that's not the right fit for you physically, but that's absolutely what we have on paper as our mission, but also what we practice. I think that those also go hand in hand. Whatever we put out in the universe, this is our mission, this is our vision. If we don't practice that day to day, what good are we as a brand,
Right.
as a business, as a person, as an owner? So we 100%, and that's a question I love getting asked. Like, do you work with, like, I don't have a disability, can I come train with you? Yes, 100%. And I love the fact that they train side by side, because we want to remove stigmas around disability and what that means, and especially again those barriers that are removed with exercise. Perfect example. You come in here, I want a quick, story that I love sharing. We had a group class, this is a couple of years ago. We had a bunch of individuals with disabilities. Several of those individuals had a support staff who come and help them. They're like an aide. They come for a couple hours a day. And oftentimes they come to the class, some work out, some don't. This one young lady comes in, she's a support staff for this young athlete. And we did the whole circuit and she was working. At the end of the session, she comes up to me and she's like, Jake, wow, that was like a real fitness class. And I look at her like laughing. I'm like, what did you expect? Like, of course it is. And I tell that story because it really holds true to the value of what we do. This whole idea of inclusion. That was that is something I come back to all the time. And I remember that when people ask me, that was a real fitness class. Well, yes. And these are the barriers and these.
I'm a real fitness trainer.
This is a real gym. This is real equipment. This is a real dumbbell, and we can joke about it, but like, it's so impactful to our sharing what we do and our brand as a whole, that, it's a story that I absolutely love to share.
I mean, is that something that you're kind of baking into the brand narrative of, because you said it a couple of times, right? We're trying to break down these barriers. Is that something you're trying to break, or trying to weave into the narrative for the public, or is that something that's kind of in the back of your head saying like, we're seeing the benefits of it. And so if we keep doing it, we'll see these barriers come down?
So I think twofold, both. We're absolutely, that's an in-house thing. We share, we practice that, but also that's what we try to share, and that is something that is always on my mind. How do we get this out to the public? And we are definitely doing that through social media and different events that we do. But that's always, as an owner, how do we continue to share with the community at large what we do? That's always our mission as far as marketing goes, and branding. Like, how do we get people to know that? I know that. Everybody that trains here knows that. Does everyone else know that? And like, I can say after 8 years, I think yes. I think the answer is yes, because we get people coming in who have seen our stuff and, hey, I love what you guys do. I'd love to come train with you. So we are constantly getting people coming in who don't have a disability. So I think our branding's working, but it's always like, that's always something that we're trying to think about, for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge because it's right. It's a story that you're putting out there, and you never know what exactly the thing is that's bringing them in. Unless you like change it drastically and all of a sudden it shoots up or it shoots way down. Like it's right. It's hard to tell. I get, okay. So yeah, no, that's awesome. So you say you're having, I guess this could be the next question then. It's like, what have you found to be the most challenging part of building the brand and creating the messaging and getting the word out about what you guys do?
Yeah. So, like I had mentioned, I think, really just making sure that we are, I think a couple of things. We are accurately portraying what we do, and we're being authentic with what we do and how we do that. That's always something that I really think about, with all of our social media and TikTok and Instagram videos and reels. Like, it's that combination. I had a big talk with my marketing manager, like, this is amazing content. This is funny and silly, but does this stay true to who we are? And it's always that, I think, that balance of, we want to show fun and silly things on social media to draw people in to then learn about our brand, but and like you said, we don't always know what it is that draws people in. We get people all the time. That's the first question. How did you hear about us? How did you find us? And that's helpful. But I think that's always the challenge. How do we stay true to who we are as a brand, as an inclusive gym? Are we, only targeting people with disabilities? Are we only targeting those without disabilities? Is there something in between? Are we doing that, really authentically? Are we staying consistent with our branding? These are things that constantly go through my head with every single thing that we put out in the universe, whether that be filming a reel or a TikTok or branding or sharing our mission and vision on our website. Like, are we doing it right? Really at its core. And that there's so many nuances to that. You can dive in on every little aspect. Instagram, are we doing that right? Are we making sure it's accessible? Can everybody read it? Every platform has a million things that you can do. So that is always, as an inclusive space, we have individuals of all abilities. So it's like, are we really targeting everyone?
Yeah, no, well, absolutely. Cause I know, like, because I know you've worked with athletes that are blind, and there's a whole spectrum that you guys work with. So like, when you say you include everybody, like, you actually mean it, which is important. Right. Your words aren't just words, they're backed by the actions.
For sure. And that's what we want to make sure that we're portraying that. Like, do people know that? And again, yes, I think because we're getting people coming in, but that's always like, that little, guy in the back of my head. No, don't do that. Don't do this. That doesn't stay true to our brand, but it's funny. That'll, it's always that in my head.
So it's great that you say that, because something I tell business owners is it's like, it's not just like a one and done session. Oh, we figured out our brand and we're done. It's an ever evolving, ever changing, not necessarily ever changing, but you're always trying to, like, everything is being put through that branding filter all the time. And you're always asking yourself, is that filter actually the right filter? And so it's this constant, everything is always under review all the time. But this is something I was listening to the other day, and it really hit me, is like, because the brand and the core concept really, it comes from you because you're the owner, you're the one that started this. Obviously, other people can come in and add their point of view and their perspective, and it can adapt. But ultimately, it's your vision, right? Because you're the founder, you're the owner right now. And the thing I heard about is your most important job as a business owner is actually making decisions, right? It's not to necessarily run the classes or do the market, right? Run the TikTok, run the social media and all that stuff you can hire people for. But it's, are you steering the ship in the right direction?
Right.
And that's exactly what the brand is doing. Like you even mentioned it, like, is what we're doing fitting into that brand framework that we've created?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it sounds like you're it's always there.
Yeah, no. And you brought up so many good points. As an owner, you wear so many different hats, and at some point you have to realize that you cannot physically do everything. You don't have enough time in your day. I personally didn't have enough energy to do everything. You might be different than that, but making decisions is that is so powerful because it's something you do on a daily basis, whether that be, do I film this reel for Instagram, or do I partner with this organization, or do I take on this sponsor? Like, there are, from small to big, you're making decisions, and sometimes they have to be pretty quick. We're obviously, we're lucky that we're a gym, and not that it's not incredibly important, but we're not sending someone to the moon. We don't have lives at risk. It's not as mission critical sometimes, but it doesn't make it less important, because we feel like we're doing really incredible work and really important work for the community, for individuals that really need it. And you have to take a step back and really think about every single aspect that goes into your brand and your business. And that, you're 100% correct. It's all the time. It's at night, it's in the morning, it is on the weekends. Even though we've been in business for so many years, it doesn't stop. I talk to a lot of business owners and friends who are like, hey, I want to start a business. How'd you do it? And it's like, here's all the glamour that you see on Instagram. People, oh, I started the business. I get to travel the world. And especially trainers, there's a lot of online trainers who are doing incredible work and can travel and can live the life that they want to live, but for I would say 98% of business owners, like, it is hard work, and you don't often see all of those back end decisions being made because what we portray is all the good stuff.
Right.
Everything you see is not all the hours of work that got put in before. So I think that's always really important to note, whenever you start something, and it always goes back to the mission. I do what I do. The hours I put into this gym is for a reason. This is the purpose why I started it, to help people. So whenever you think about, oh, this like sucks, branding, why do I gotta do this? Why do I gotta share this with the world? I always go back to the mission, because without that, there's zero purpose.
Yeah, and that's why I always start there. It's like, because like you said, like, starting a business is not, it's a grind, right? That the word is there for a reason, right? It's not easy. And so I always start with the purpose. It's like, is there something here that you are emotionally attached to that's going to keep you going and help you do all of these hard things while you start a business? Because if you don't have that to fall back on, like you said, you're going to hit something hard and be like, it's not really that big a deal.
Yeah, this isn't worth it. I'll go start something else. Like, and it's so beautiful to get past those points. I hit this rock, and a big rock was COVID. Our gym shut down for all in-person training. So it's like, that was like really, I think, the first like big roadblock that I came across. And it was a pretty big one.
Yeah. I think most people would agree with that.
For sure.
So obviously you said you've been around for 8 years. And I don't know if you've hit this point yet, or if it's something that you are still thinking about it. Is there a point where you felt like your business went from being just a business to like, I have a brand? Was there like a moment, or like a series of moments where you're like, okay, we've got something that people are actually talking about?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what it was. COVID.
Okay.
So, and I'll explain that a little bit. So we opened our brick and mortar gym. We had been in business for much longer, but we opened our physical space in 2019. January 2020, right, was our first full year. Incredible year. I mean, we were booming. It was an incredible year. That's all I can describe it as. What was it? March, 20th. this COVID hit and the stay-at-home order, everybody must be at home. You're on lockdown.
Yeah.
Lock the gym doors, you know, and obviously for many business owners, it was, okay, my business is done. Like, who knows how long this is going to be? We all thought, oh, it'd be a couple of weeks and then we'll get back to it. You know, weeks turn into months, turn into years.
Yeah.
You know, and it was really, you know, you said that moment, that 100% was the specific moment, you know, in April or so. I also had a newborn in April. So it was like, throw that into the mix of how do I retain the business, but also I have this new child at home that I have to care for and keep alive. You know, so really it was COVID hit. We, you know, for about 2 or 3 weeks when, you know, no one really knew what was going on, you know, and obviously as owners, like, I don't know if I'm going to have a business, and who knows what's going to happen. I came into the gym and it was that, you know, aha moment, like I mentioned before, adaptive, inclusive, and active. You know, it says it on our door, it says it on our sign, it says it on all of our marketing material. And like, as cliche, it was like this like light bulb moment in here. I was in the gym by myself. Probably the lights were off because I was like, you know, there's no point in turning the lights on. I didn't want to pay for electricity. You know, I'm trying to save any money I can at this point. So I get in here and I'm like thinking to myself, like, adaptive, inclusive, and active. This is what I preach, you know, every single day. This is what I tell parents. This is what we do. And I was thinking to myself, like, okay, this is a perfect example. We got to be adaptive. How do we continue to train our athletes if we can't see them in person? Obviously, virtual training is not new, right? There have been people doing virtual training forever, but it was new to us and new to me personally. And I thought, like, okay, we have a tough time sometimes training our athletes in person to keeping them focused and attentive. How is this going to work in a virtual space? And the aha moment was right here when we became a brand. That first day when we put out, you know, the word, okay, we're gonna, you know, me personally, I'm gonna lead a class, you know, on Zoom. Let's see how it goes. Send an email to our families. We had something like 45 athletes join that first class.
That's amazing.
And that for me was the moment, oh my God, we have this incredible community. You know, it is bigger than me. It is bigger than our trainers. This is something, there's a reason why we have so many people on here. And like, it still gives me chills. Like, it was just such this incredible moment of, like, it's not just ZOOZ Fitness is not Jake. Like, ZOOZ Fitness is not just 1 or 2 training sessions. Like, this is a community of families that rely on us to keep their kids healthy. And our athletes themselves love coming for the social piece, for the physical component. They're losing weight. And I mean, obviously throughout COVID, like, we had ups and downs with Zoom, and Zoom fatigue is a real thing, as I'm sure you're aware. But like, that first day was everything. And that, like, just nailed the hammer in the wall for me of, like, this is what we need to be doing.
No, that's amazing, because that's right. There was this huge hurdle that could have absolutely shut down the business. But the fact that your athletes and your, you know, we don't care that there's this, it's a different format, that it's going to be harder, where we still want to be a part of the business. And so that's when that's when, you know, you've created that special connection that you need to have for a business to survive these types of things.
Right. And I think, you know, I have a lot of friends who were gym owners who had to close their gyms, but like, I think it just really also hit home that what we're doing is needed, but also what we're doing is, like, we're doing things right. You know, we're branding, at least I think in the right direction to keep people coming back. Because that's really what it comes down to. If you don't have a business with repeat customers, no matter what you do, you don't have a business.
Right. Yeah. People are definitely focused on how do I get new business, but then you basically just have a turnstile, people coming in, coming out. And
loyalty is everything.
Yeah. And then you're losing all of this money because it's so expensive to get new people in the door.
Yeah.
Than it is to keep the same person coming back. It's like, hey, I sent them an email. Oh yeah, I just forgot about the business. I'll come back in, versus like spending marketing dollars and ads and this, and just it definitely is something I've noticed when I was in the sales game, of like, people were not thinking about getting people back in the door. They were just saying, oh, like, our services are good enough, they'll just come back. It's like, no, you gotta do something that's better than good, because good is now like the baseline. Like, having good quality and good services are now like expected of business owners, of any business.
Yeah, that's so true. No, that's so true. And like it's funny because that's I mean, that runs through our head all the time. Whenever we have new trainers, is like that's expected, right? You have a certain level of energy when you come in. They're expected to get a good workout. They're expected to, hopefully lose weight and feel better. But it's what are you doing above and beyond that? And I'll tell you also a big thing when you retain clients, athletes, families, referrals are everything. 90 something 95%, or I'll throw out a big number like that because it's probably true. 95% of our business is referral based, right? And this is a gym. We spend very little dollars on marketing. And different marketing people might say that's crazy, but we have such a strong community. And when you have that, they tell their friends, and then those friends tell their friends, and their friends tell, it's this domino effect that we see time and time again. And it might be 6 months from now, a year from now, hey, a friend of mine told me about you guys 6 months ago, but we're finally ready to come in. That happens all the time. And I have no idea who this person, like, I know who
Right.
the person who referred, but that new person, like, great, that's amazing, come on in, So I think business owners sometimes, like you said, forget the power of your core group of families or clients or whoever it might be.
Yeah, so that's what's called the tribe, right? And if you're doing things right, your tribe should end up becoming your marketing team.
Right.
If your people are not excited to tell people about your business, then
You're not doing something right.
You're right. You're hitting the baseline. You're doing what they expect, and people don't tell, right? You don't tell people about things that are just everyday, ordinary kind of things. You tell people about those exciting, extraordinary things. Now, opening a gym might not seem extraordinary to the average person, but I'm assuming to those parents who've never had that for their children in this community, this is insanely incredible for them.
Yeah. I mean, and this is, again, like I said, when I talk to people about what we do, this is ZOOZ Fitness. We empower individuals of all abilities. And the first reaction is like, what? Like, this is what you do? This exists. And that's parents who have kids with disabilities and those who don't. Like, anyone and everyone, it's a concept that is so foreign to so many people. And especially, I love the parents who have a son or daughter with a disability. And you see, like, also like, oh my God, my son or daughter could exercise. They have so much energy, they're bouncing off the walls. I can get them into a space where they can channel that. Like, what? So that also is like really cool to dispel all those myths around disability and fitness.
Yeah, and you're creating an exceptional service for these parents and for their kids. And obviously they want to go tell them about it because it's a human, it's a natural human thing to want to share things that are incredible to us.
Right.
And so that's what's happening. That's what word of mouth is, right? I've had an incredible experience. I don't want to keep it to myself. I want to tell somebody. I want to tell somebody so that maybe they can enjoy it, right? Because like you said, we're social, so we naturally want to share these things. So if you're not able to harness that word of mouth power, because what you're seeing now is everyone's like, oh, ads and marketing and content and social media and all this, but something I've learned is that businesses expand horizontally, right? It's not coming from the business to the customers or to the tribe. It's the tribe spreading the word amongst themselves. That's how you create those strong businesses that it's called the Mona Lisa effect. And there's a whole story about it, but basically it's how do you draw things to you rather than you having to go chase everybody down, right? You create this extraordinary story, which you guys have about for this community about inclusive, adaptive, and active that they've never heard before. So that's why they're starting to come to you, because they haven't heard that. It's something so new and so exciting to them that they're drawn in. Right. So now I'm going to ask you a little bit again about the beginning. How did you come up with and figure out that as your kind of your three pillars, the inclusive, adaptive, and active? Obviously the active, pretty straightforward because you're a gym. Yeah. Right.
So, I to be honest with you, I don't know if there was an exact moment that I can remember where I was like, oh, okay, these are the words and these are going to stick to it. I'm sure what it was is, when I first had this idea, and again, it started somewhat organically, and over time, it was very, like I say 8 years, but it's really like 12 years because this idea was ruminating within my mind for many years. But it was there's this big need. There's this, huge population of people who need exercise. And, obviously when you sit down, when you start a new company, I had like a notepad that I brought with me everywhere. And I'd write down like anything that came to mind that when it referred to fitness or disability, and I think it was just like that moment of like, I was probably talking to friends or something, and I was saying, okay, we have to be adaptive sometimes because some of the workouts, like, they can't do certain things for whatever reason. Adaptive, I like that. And then the inclusive piece, like I really felt it was why is no one doing this? Why does everyone not work out together? Why are they separated? So I think it was a moment like that where I just wrote down, I just did like a brain dump, everything that was coming to my mind at the early stages of ZOOZ. And those are the three that just really stood out. And again, active, yeah, of course. But the adaptive, inclusive, and active, like that really defines who we are. And each of those you could talk about for hours about what it truly means. But with everybody, everyone needs some, form of adaptation or whatnot. Or, it's not just individuals with disabilities. Like, hey, I was in high school, I played sports and I have a bum ankle, so I got to be careful. Like everybody,
dislocated
right?
my shoulder, so you gotta, like, yeah.
Everybody's coming into it. So that's why also, those three words are also can be shared with everybody. You don't have to have a disability to want to feel included, and to be adaptive and act like, so it was kind of that really organic. And I wish I had like a moment where I like woke up and those three words came to me, but it didn't happen that way.
Well, I think what's important to understand is that it isn't, like you said, a moment. It's, you're literally working through and brainstorming and right. You're, like you said, you're literally carrying around a notebook. I use my phone. I've got like notes, like 18,000 different notes open about ideas and things. And it's a process. And I think that's where some business owners are like, oh, I'll just throw something together and I'll come up with it real quick and we'll be good to go. And it's like, no, you've got to work through it and really get down to the core of like, what is the truth behind what it is you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's obviously, like you said, if it's not authentic and you're not actually going to live by it and it's not something that you're connected to, then you're really kind of just putting up it's like you're a front for a business and you're just kind of doing money laundering in the back.
Right. That's a great analogy. And it really, I think when we also started, it was literally me with equipment training. Like, I don't think we had business cards. I might have had the name ZOOZ Fitness, but I didn't have t-shirts. Like, I didn't have any branding. I had zero. All I had was, hey, here's my cell phone number. Do you want to go train?
Right.
That's how it started. And it was just over the time I knew, like, and maybe this was the wrong way to do it, but it's worked for us.
There's no right way.
What we do, right? Right. And that was my philosophy too. We started with what we do. I want to train. I want to get clients. I want to get athletes. I want to build the relationships with families. I want to get experience. I know I love this, but am I good at this? Can I do this long term? And then those things came. Okay, I need business cards. People are asking how to reach me. Okay, I'll create those. Oh, I need a website. Oh, let's create that. Oh, some shirts. Like, so really, not only the idea was organic and happened over time, also our branding and marketing stuff. Like, also, I didn't have money at first. I wasn't about to spend money on marketing materials. Like, no, here's Jake. I'll call you up. Here's my cell phone. I'm gonna tell you everything I want to know. Everything was in my head. So I think that's also important to know. Like, if you are passionate about something, start slow, be authentic, start slow with that process, because really ultimately what it is building those relationships with people, especially if you're in the service industry. Obviously, if you have a product, you need product to sell, but we have a service, and the service was me doing training at first.
I mean, so what I'm hearing there is, which is important, is right. You had your brand story. So to understand what I'm about to say, you have to understand the difference between brand and then your branding. Your brand is, the best definition I've heard is it's the story that's embedded in the minds of the market. So
like
it's the thing to focus on there is it's what your customers are saying about you, which honestly has nothing to do with you. Like you have no control over it. You can obviously influence it through your actions. And like you said, you can influence it through the branding, which is a verb, right? Your branding is the actions where you're constantly, right? You're making the videos, you're making the business card, you're creating shirts, you're crafting the experience, right? That's all of the things that you're doing. But to understand the brand itself, that's what you had at first. You had this story, right? It doesn't take money to build a story and create the ideas and the concepts.
Right.
Once you have a compelling story that people actually care about and can connect to, all the branding and efforts, that stuff can get built on top of it. But
Mhm.
without that, like you said, without that initial idea and without that connection, right? There's no foundation for it.
Yeah, no, I think that you're absolutely correct. And thank you for saying that, because that makes me feel better about how we started. That we didn't do it all wrong, you know. Um, but that idea, you know, it really, like, and you asked the question earlier, like what's been the most challenging about branding? Like, I think that moment when you have a story in your head and people are sharing ideas and they're referring others, how do I channel that into marketing material? You know, and this is why I think brand experts exist. You know, it's something I wish I had way back in the day, and even now. You know, like, how do we? It's all in my head. It sounds clear in my head. It makes total sense. But how do I get that word out there? So that's also
Yeah.
like why it took so long to create, you know, our pillars and our mission. Like, it had to be clear and concise, and it wasn't for a long time because it was all in my head.
So the thing to think about there is, right, it's hard to read, what is the saying? It's hard to read the bottle from when you're on the inside, right? You can't read the label when you're on the inside of the bottle,
Yeah,
right?
oh, I like
You
that
got all the,
analogy.
it's
Yeah,
hard to like look at yourself subjectively and be like, oh, this is good, this right, because it's you're mixed in there. Once you start getting
there's so
it
many
out,
biases. Yeah,
right? Once you get it out, you can have all that stuff in front of you, and you know, obviously, I'm never going to tell you not to hire a brand strategist, because obviously that's what I do.
right.
but but just getting it out on paper and getting the ideas, and that way you can actually work with the ideas instead of it being infused with you and the brain. Obviously you have things that your brain are telling you constantly that can fake you out. So get it out on paper, like you said, and just get the ideas working, and that way you can work with them organically. And again, that doesn't take any money. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because right, you talk to so many businesses that give examples of like Apple and this and that, and look at their great marketing campaign and all this, and it's like, well, yeah, they had, you know, bajillions of dollars to spend.
Right.
But if you're able to craft that compelling story, all you need is a phone, and you just tell your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what people are connected to with these businesses, is these stories, right? They don't come because, I mean, they might come, they might think it's cool that you have the best equipment and all of this and all of that, but other gyms can have the best equipment, all this and all that. But it's not really like, it doesn't hit you in a place where you're like, oh my God, this is an amazing thing. It's like, oh, cool, they've got cool equipment, right? It doesn't really tug
Right.
on the
So,
heartstrings.
no, for sure. And I think for us in particular, what draws you in is maybe, you know, the cool space and the equipment, but what keeps you coming back is that story. You know, and granted, those might be different for different people, but like, a lot of people walk in and it's a cool gym space. There's black, there's green, there's white, there's cool colors. It looks cool. It's neat. It's got all the equipment. But what also is like almost the icing on the cake for us, and really, like, that obviously is our core, but it's that story. Why we have such an incredible community. Once you come in, once you get drawn in by, okay, I want to lose weight, the gym is close by. You know, that's what happens to a lot of people. Oh, it's walking
Right.
distance from my house, I'm going to come by.
Convenience.
Great. But then they find out what we do, and it's like, oh my God, like, I'm never leaving. This is the best thing ever. You know, that happens all the time because of the story.
Yeah. It's you get them emotionally connected and chemically, like biochemically.
Right.
It's the reason why your best friend, you wouldn't like replace your best friend. It's because you created an emotional connection that your body is actually physically responding to.
Right.
And like, you wouldn't dare dream of being like, no, you're not my new best friend anymore, unless they like, you know, punch you in the face or something. But even then,
Right.
you
Right.
still might be their friend.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So we got about 10 minutes left. So let me see, what else do we want to cover today? Anything that you would recommend for anybody who's new starting a business when they're attacking their brand? Any advice you would have for them? Brand new, starting out, what would you recommend?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of what we've been saying, but really to narrow it down, be authentic. Be authentic with what you're trying to do, what you're capable of doing, and who you're serving, right? What is the mission? What is the purpose of what you do? You know, and as cliche as that sounds, like, that I think will always hold true. When you have purpose, everything else follows. So I think those are two things to really keep in mind: purpose and authenticity. But also, I mean, like me, and I think it really served me well, was not to rush into it. You know, I just recently actually had a friend who was talking to me like about, you know, they're starting a business, and, oh, I got to get social media, and I got to get business cards, and I got to do this and pump all this money into it. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. You haven't even seen a single client yet. Why don't you start with the experience, build on that, get that strong, everything else will follow. And you said it, you have a phone and I have me. If you can talk, right, or you can type, or you can write a story, or you can share something in any way that means to you, that is where you need to start. Everything else, you said this too, everything else will follow. I think so people are so caught up with, I got to get the best merchandise, and I got to get the best swag, and I get the best business cards. Do I get the circular ones? Do I get the rectangular ones? Do I get the star? Do I get a dumbbell business card? Like, great. That's all great. And that can add to, I think, the value of a brand, but start organically and start with that purpose and be authentic. I mean, I think that's the best advice. That's what I've learned over these years. I wish somebody had told me that in the beginning. And just really staying true to who you are as a company and as a business owner. Because again, you're the one making the decisions, right? You said it. That's
right.
You're leading the ship, right? So you have to be so confident with that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely seen the business owners who were like, I need to get a website and all this and all that. And they haven't developed anything yet. So the content and the things they put up there are super bland.
Right.
Because they don't have experiences to pull from within the business or with their tribe, right? They're thinking, so here's the other thing is they're thinking me, instead of let me think about my clients and the people I'm serving, and let me start serving them and doing and figuring out what they actually need before I pump, like you said, pump all this money in there.
Right. No, absolutely. There's this great analogy, like when and I read this really amazing book. It's called the Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's one of the best books. It's fantastic, right? And this idea of like, I'm not a person who exercises. Well, we say that because that's what you keep telling yourself, but historically, you've never been a person who exercises. So I think like this goes into what we're talking about. If you don't have experience, how can you share a story? Right? If you don't have a purpose and there's not a need in the community, how can you share that with the world? So I think all of that, you need historical data, evidence. It doesn't have to be for years, but you need to get something to be able to say, this is why I'm doing it. This is the reason. Here's what I've seen. Here's what I've done. I think that's really important. I think many business owners lose sight of that because it's me, you, us. That I think you nailed that on the head. So, I mean, yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the purpose of a business is to provide value, but it's value to a community. So right. If you're not thinking about them, then I don't get why you went into a business in the first place.
Right. And there's no purpose. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I want to go get rich. I want to do this. Right. Those are all nice things. But like we talked about before, if you hit that wall and you don't have that purpose that's built in, that's emotionally charged to it, then you might stop. You'll probably stop because
for sure.
It's too hard.
And this is why I forget about percentage, but so many businesses fail within the first 3 to 5 years.
It's like 50% or something.
Yeah. I mean, something crazy.
Something scary. Yeah.
Right. And that's something always is in my head. Oh my God, I can't be one of those stats. Like here's purpose. I'm doing it. Purpose driven,
Awesome. So we're coming up on the end here. So let me ask you one final question. What is happening in the future for ZOOZ Fitness, and anything that you want to ask me that I could potentially give you a quick advice, quick tip on that might, unlock something?
Okay, cool. I love that question. So a lot's happening with the future of ZOOZ. I mean, I think, as a business owner, you have to be always adapting and growing and pivoting and shifting, but while all staying true to who we are. So obviously there's more gyms to come in the future, more opportunities, all under the umbrella of health and wellness. I think I'll leave it at that, but there's a lot, there's a lot going on. There's always, there's nothing really in like set in stone, but there's always ideas that are happening, which is always very exciting. And I think, I don't know if there's like a specific branding question, but I think in general, like, how do you, and you kind of answered this, but how do you know if you're branding correctly, you know? And I think there's a lot that goes into that, but like in a nutshell, like your advice to new businesses or businesses that you're trying to rebrand or just continue with their efforts, how do you know if what you're doing is right, and how do you know what to do?
So there's the concept here called the brand gap, right? So you have what's in your brain, and then you've got what the customers or your tribe are thinking, right? So there's always going to be some kind of space in between there, right? It's never going to overlap perfectly. Obviously, that's the goal one day, but is what you're saying and what your customer's saying about the business, are those starting to line up?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in order to do that, you have to get feedback and you know, understand their stories and understand why they're coming in and why they're staying, which is a great branding opportunity to capture their stories, right? Not necessarily testimonials where it's, you know, super rigid, but like just get their stories, which I've seen on the website. And are they saying the things that you have put into your mission and into your purpose?
Right.
Right. Because like we said before, it's the stories that are embedded in the minds of the market. So if your marketer telling the stories that you want them to be telling, then, you know, you've got your brand, but you have to actually listen. That's where I think people, they get a little hesitant, where it's like, I don't necessarily want the feedback because it may or may not be good. And they're worried that if they get bad feedback, then, you know, oh, their business is doing bad. And no, it just means you have something to keep working towards.
Right.
But none of that
Love
works
that.
if you don't have, like you said, that core story that the business is on. And it may not be that you have to change your complete story, but there might be places in the experience that you're not necessarily managing correctly based on, right, your story. Or maybe there's lack of clarity within the business because that story isn't quite figured out yet. And that's where you see a lot of businesses kind of disintegrate from within, because there's lack of clarity within the business itself, right? Everyone has their own stories, right? Because we all think in stories, right? We're not thinking in percentages or data. It's these narratives we have going on our head. So if your team has different narratives and different ideas of where the business should go, then you end up having a business that starts to fracture, right? So definitely getting all the people on the same page, because they have that same brand story that's solidified, you'll find things will be a lot smoother.
Love that. Love
so,
it.
And it seems like you guys have figured out that story. So the last thing you want to do is, right, get the shiny object syndrome and start, you know, trying to change the brand because something happened. It's whatever situation happens within the framework of that brand. That's how you guys attack it. The ZOOZ way.
Right. Love it. Love it. Love it.
All right, man. Well, we're up on the hour here, so I'm sure you got some athletes to get back to. But, you know, thank you so much for being the first interview. Very excited about how this went. Very smooth. But again, I'm very excited and love what you're doing. Love to see where you've taken the business from to where it is now, and I'm very excited to see where it is headed in the future.
Awesome. RJ, thank you so much. And this is, you know, super helpful, even from like a seasoned entrepreneur. Like it's always amazing. And to talk through with someone who really understands brands and businesses and how to get that message across, you know, it also like is validating for someone like me. Like it really is helpful. Like, okay, what we're doing is right, you know, because that's always, again, that head in the voice in my head. So thank you so much. I'm honored to be on this, man. And hopefully it helps anyone who's listening.
That's why we're here, to serve.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thanks, buddy.